Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. This is Insights from It podcast with Andrea Cepeda joining us all the way from Portugal, and myself, Eduardo Mota, joining today from San Francisco. This is a podcast around um, AI technology, careers. There is a lot of hype into many places today, and we are doing this to give you insights into what's going on, how do you get into the tech careers, what's happening with the latest and greatest technology around there. And so, welcome everyone. Andrea, how are you doing today?
Um, Good, thank you, Eduardo. Hi, everyone. I am Andrea, and I'm very excited to be here and explore this intersection of technology and everyday life with you, Eduardo, and with all of you. So my background is in linguistics. I also did some business analysis, and I'm currently working as a user experience conversational designer. Yeah, so I'm very passionate about the responsible and empathetic application of technology. And I'm currently working for a company called KindWorks AI. And I focus on how AI, when guided by principles of empathy and kindness, can improve our daily experiences. So speaking of AI, it is a topic that we see everywhere. So I think, Eduardo, you have a lot of experience in this area. So from your perspective, what really is AI and how do you see the roles? How do you see it impacting the roles of people and in tech and beyond?
AI is a big word everywhere, like we see it everywhere. I mean, in conferences this year, in some of the AI, how do you put AI in absolutely the the challenge is that we are just finding exactly how do we utilize AI? What is AI for our day? We are really used to all these automation happening around us. Right? You have Alexia, you have Google Home, uh, you have, there's probably others. But you can ask questions and it will come back. You know, your phone, there is AI going on in many different places. Photographs is one of the biggest ones that you can see directly how AI is helping make those photographs better. But at the end of the day, we interact with it. The type of what's going on today is just the next wave of what is capable with models. We are able to now better, say, represent language, human language. And that's kind of like what has made this craze of what's happening. How can you represent, how can a model, a machine learning model, be able to understand and represent um, like human language in a way that you can have conversations, you can have interaction, you can understand, not put quotes and understand what somebody's typing or what somebody has produced in a document. And so because of all of that, we are able to interact with machines in a different way. I don't know, have you tried ChatGPT?
Yes, I have.
You have. And what do you think when you first tried it? I don't know if you remember the first time that you tried
Yeah, I first tried it to help me with a paragraph that I was kind of like stuck on. And I was like trying to find a better way to say things. And then my husband, who's also a software developer, told me, "Hey, why don't you try ChatGPT?" I was like, "No, why? Like I can do it." And yeah, I was like, "Okay, let's try this." And then I asked ChatGPT to give me a better version, and of course it did. I was like, "Oh, okay, this is useful." So yeah, and that's how it
it?
started.
No, how long ago was that? How long ago when was it the first time that you tried it?
I think maybe like 6 months ago.
6 months ago. Okay. Well, I mean, you're kind of like a newbie.
Yeah.
You're, when I first tried it, I was playing with it. I wasn't really trying to get anything useful. I was just trying to test what was going on with it. I kind of like try in a different way that people tried it in regards to uh, how me fix these things. I'm like, okay, let's see how it feels on a conversation. I wanna see how it feels on a conversation with this. And so I told it to be a psychologist and to ask me questions based on the answers that will provide. Uh, then at the end to give me a summary of what you thought I should do to help me be better, be a better person. So I went through it. Uh, there was a point like half an hour into it when I had to stop. Like,
Why?
I can't do this because it felt like I was having a conversation with someone. It was
Did
just
it tell
like,
you that you were
and
crazy?
well, I mean, yes, but there is a lot of people that tell me that crazy. Even my phone tells me, "Hey, you're crazy. What are you asking?" But it was able to understand the answers that I was giving, and then being able to follow up with questions or answers. Like how did that? I mean, given a lot of it, you can like it's empathy. And hey, how do you feel about it? It generates into what questions you will ask, right? Like if you're telling a story, you ask, how did that feel, or how do you feel about it? What do you think that was the case? But there were some questions that were very particular around the story that I was telling. I mean, when I asked it to give you my advice, it really summarized everything that I was going and give me kind of like, hey, Phil, you should be doing this, or you should try to do this. And back then, it wasn't built with all these other things like, hey, please, this is seek medical attention. I'm not a professional or anything. These warnings that will normally give you. So it was difficult to be able to just break from that and feel like it's something, it's just machine. And so it kind of like freaked me out a little bit. I'm like, you know what? I feel like I'm being trust with a machine that really doesn't understand what it's what it's doing, what is the impact of what it's saying. And so I had to stop it, and then I need to learn how to this works a little bit. And I knew how some of this stuff works. I've been working with machine learning for a long time. But I took a little bit of a break from machine learning, and I focused in DevOps for a while, a few years, and then ChatGPT came back, and I'm like, okay, I'm in touch with machine learning for a bit. I need to go back. Once I dig deeper, I understood how. So it's quite once you know, kind of like a magic curtain comes off, and you can see you know, what's happening, why it's doing what it's doing, and the pitfalls of AI machine learning.
So I have a question.
So yeah,
So you're talking about what is behind, and that you kind of like open the curtain. So the question is, do you think that AI is capable of thinking or reasoning, or what's going on?
so what's going on behind the scenes is a lot of mathematical functions, basically. We talk about AI, we talk about ChatGPT, and this is something that came out, but end of 2022, and then the case beginning 2020, beginning of 2028 is when everything started with ChatGPT. But the technology has been in development for like 20 years or so. Really, the foundation of all of these is it's something called the neural networks, right? You don't mind, I want to share really quick to just showcase what I mean with all of the like what is the meaning of the neural network and what's behind uh, LLM. What is an LLM? Really quick with our conversation. So Here you can see this is a very basic neural network. And the purpose of this neural network is to differentiate between the yellow dots, orange dots. And so what happens here is that this neural network has these neurons, which are represented by these squares. In reality, in the program itself, in the computer, is represented by what is called a vector in itself. But let's represent them here as squares. And so you have these squares, and each of them are a neuron, which is kind of like a loosely based representation from the human brain. Now we know that from biology that there is a lot more going on, but we take it from that. And then you have multiple layers, and these layers create these paths. And so based on the input that you give it, it's going to go through these paths, it's going to activate certain paths, and then it's going to go to the output. Now, right now, this model doesn't know anything. It's very random. But if you start giving it data, the way that you do it is you just give it data. You give it some input data that you're gonna utilize to create predictions, and then you give it the output of that, and then it quickly starts comparing. Hey, I got this data. I put it through the network. I put it through the model, and it came out ugly. What is that compared to my real thing, to the output that I'm actually wanting to look at? And so it goes back and adjusts numbers in these neurons in these cells, and then goes again, goes again, goes again, goes again. And every time it does that, it's called an epoch. And so, for example, in here we can see it's 96. It got over 96 in those few seconds that I train it. It went through 96 times, comparing the input that I give it compared to the output that I generated. And it created this neural network. Now, what am I talking about neural networks? Well, because a foundational model, an LLM, what we are using right now with GenAI, it has this structure, but it has at a larger scale. So it has maybe 50, 60, up to 100 layers instead of just these three hidden layers having this very basic model. And each of these neurons, in this case, I have 6, 4, and 4, and then 12 output. This neural network will have 16 parameters, 16 layers. So 16 parameters or 16 neurons. So when you're talking about a foundational model and you see it with ChatGPT and with others models, they talk about millions and billions of parameters. It's because they have millions and billions and sometimes trillions of neurons. So if you just imagine, this is these many paths that are happening here. We create this many paths with 3 layers and 16 neurons. How many paths can it create when it goes to like 150, 60, and you have like thousands of neurons? It can create like an insane amount of patterns of paths that it can go through, and it's those paths that represent our human patterns in our human life. And so that's how it's able to represent human language by creating all these patterns, having a representation of all these patterns, and um, very complex representations. So ultimately, it's just calculating probability. So what is the input? The input is just your text, your prompt, the question that you ask. And so it comes out. What it does in the output layer, it creates, let's say, for simplicity's sake, it creates 10 words. And it ranks those 10 words into like, this is the most likely to follow the text that you send me. And so it will output that. It goes back and it goes to the next one. It goes back. So it's one word at a time that it's building based on what is the most probable word that will follow the text that you add, right? So it's just building on probabilities of what's going on. And so that's why your prompt is important because it will help this neural network just use certain patterns for the scope that you're looking for, right? So that way you get better answers if you tell it, hey, please act as please act as a salesperson, please act as a cloud architect, please act as a mom, as a teacher, because it's just from all the languages that it has, it will just concentrate in those areas where the paths get activated for that subject. And then it will give it more weight to those words. And so when it comes to output, it's going to create more likely output on that space. Now, does it mean that it knows what it's saying? No, it doesn't know the impact of what it's saying. And so that is a reason why there is a term called hallucination, where the LLM will just say things that sound realistic, that sound like a fact, but they are completely fabricated. And so at the beginning of all of this craze, there was a lawyer who used ChatGPT to prepare for his case, went in front of the judge and started telling all these previous cases just for the judge to say, like, what are you talking about? None of these cases exist. And so it was ChatGPT just creating these cases to support the idea that this lawyer was trying to present. And he failed to double check the work. And so, well, it wasn't a good presentation of that. And we have some, like, and even now, like, that was at the beginning. We are talking about a year and a half later after this experience, and we're still exploring deal with it. Then kind of go with chat and bot was conversation with a customer. The customer by the late flight or cancel flight, I don't remember. And so it was asking what was his rights around it. And it ended up telling it to all these different things that he could get as part of Air Canada's policy. And a lot of them were not true, were not part of actual policy. And so Air Canada refuses. No, the customer took it to court, said, like, you told me to. You said all this. And Corey's like, yeah, you provided this information. You said that. So you need to provide what you said. You need to actually, do that promise. And so it went through that.
So
Yeah.
you say that the prompt that we have to give to AI is very important. So
Yeah.
for someone that is just starting, can you share tips on how to effectively craft prompts to get the best of AI?
So similar to what I was telling you with the neural network, give it context, give it what is it that you're talking about. And so when you give it context about what you're talking about, it starts bringing down really trying to focus on what is gonna be talking about. What is the words that is gonna be coming out of the mouth. Now, if the more the information that you give, it's gonna be useful. It's very useful. So let's say, for example, you are creating an essay or you are creating a marketing campaign, whatever it is. If you want it to sound like it's coming from you, tell it who you are. Tell it a little bit of what type of things you like. Like, and I'm not talking about, hey, I'm gonna create a marketing campaign, so I'm gonna tell it that I like, let's say, going for a walk in the afternoon. But tell it what kind of, like, I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert, I like using this type of words. Maybe you created something in the past. Give it as an example. Say, hey, look, this is something I created in the past. Take the tone and vocabulary and create this new thing with this new subject. And that will help it really constitute who you are, and kind of like your voice or the voice of the company. Maybe you are creating this for your company. And so you have some material that has been created before. You have a values, your mission. Give that to the model so you understand the scope and the context of what you're doing, and then answer your question. So first, the first part is just give it what is called a context. Give it background on the task that you're doing. and then again give it the actual like, this is why you do this. So that will help be better at doing giving you the prompt that you're looking for, the output. So that was a tip. You can give it more than one example. Give it more than one example. Now, I gotta say, there is a limit to how much you can give it. Yeah, those limits are getting really, really big. Um, and depending where you're using it, how you like the service that you use. So I want to be make sure that everyone understands that. First, the model doesn't have a limit. Models have a limit of how many words you can give it before it says like before it truncates that input. So check out what that is. Every service provider will have different one. Let's say if it's 1,000. If it's 1,000. You give it, let's say 2,000 words. It's gonna process the first 1,000 and then it's gonna read the last 1,000, and those last thousands it's going to remember. It's gonna use. It's not gonna use it. So it's just gonna use the last 1,000. And as you're having a conversation with it, it's just gonna remember the last 1,000. So it's not gonna remember the entire thing. Like the model itself cannot remember. What has the ability to remember is application that you build. So don't think that the ChatGPT, when it was created on the first iteration of it, somebody was typing and it was already having a conversation with you. Absolutely not. It was just literally generating word after word. You will ask it a question and it will just start spilling words until you tell it to stop. It didn't have that mechanism of saying like, oh, you already answered it. Okay, I'm not gonna keep going. It will just keep just telling you story after story after story, like just words. And there will be a point where it wouldn't make sense anymore. Um, and then companies and researchers start doing what is alignment, and that's giving it examples and training it to say like, hey, when you get asked this question, this is the answer. And so giving a lot of that dialogue with humans, and that's how ChatGPT came out. It's now this ability of the model to say like, oh, you ask a question, I'll give you an answer, and I stop. I won't give you more. I won't give you any more information because that's being aligned to just answer what you provide. And so the model itself doesn't have history. Like that is the history. It's the history that people have. So, um, that's why it's important that input gives a context, gives a what's it called, refinement into what that output.
Cool. And
It
we've
really
been
doesn't know
talking
what
about,
it's saying.
but we've been talking a lot about Chat GPT. Are there other things, other tools or
Yes.
models that you can suggest to experiment
So
with?
yeah. So Google has its own set of models. Gemini is a family of latest model. Gemini uh, right now it's going everywhere. In the US, it's been put into everything. You can use Gemini in the same service as ChatGPT. You can subscribe to it and use it. The difference of like for example Gemini and ChatGPT from a from a user's perspective is that Gemini can accept a million tokens, which is like I don't know how many books or how many movies you can post. And it's multimodal, so you can give it like we can give it images, we can give it text and it will be able to upload. You can give it video and it will be able to publish that video. And I've tried it. It's insane. You tried it. You give it a YouTube video, and it's like right away it tells you what's going on in the video, or what part video. It didn't tell you who is in the video or not. So it's a little bit inefficient. So Gemini is a great one from Google. On AWS, they have a suite of multiple ones. So you have, for example, companies like Kentucky, Claude from Mistral, um, Like Anthropic, you can also access it to Anthropic website, or you can access it for AWS network service. This models, and you can use multiple models. But those are the most kind of like popular ones. ChatGPT, Gemini, Anthropic, it is really, really powerful. Mistral is a really good one. Llama 3 from Meta open source. I really like the idea of companies enabling this as open source. It really helps access these models to many people. Because something that we haven't talked about is that these models are trained in language that we're doing. Most models were trained in it and continue to be trained the majority of it, like 70%, even, like 90% maybe, of the training material that a lot of these models have gone through is just English. And then you split the last 10%, you split it into 20 other different languages, which is a very insane bias, right? And so open source models allow people from India, from other countries, for example, to take it and create models with different dialects that understand different dialects of the region and be able to provide those ones to the community. So I think it's really amazing.
Cool.
You mentioned to use it. There is a great tool. I'm going to give you this quick advice. There's a great tool called LM Studio that you
What's
can
the name?
install in your laptop. LM Studio.
Love Studio.
And there's a few other ones, but I like this one because it has a UI, and so everybody can easily interact with it. So LM Studio, and what it does, it creates an interface in your laptop, and then you can download open source models that have been kind of like downsized to a laptop size version. So you can download it in your laptop and start chatting with the model and start having a conversation with the model. That is not going to be the same as if you're going to Gemini, or you're going to ChatGPT, or you're going to Claude or Anthropic. But it's a great way to understand how to play around with it without spending money, without like really understand how it is, how your problem will change, and then be able to play around. It's a quick tip on that one.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, for example, for someone like me or like anyone that wants to add these language models into the routine, for example, emails or proposals or marketing content, what are some beginner tips that you would offer?
So I will say the first warning, top really warning, like be careful of what you send to the models. Because of the terms and conditions, sometimes these models would utilize the information and the conversation you have with it to retrain the model to make it better. And so be careful unless you're sure that the model is not using the information you prompt. Uh, use use it as if you are talking with somebody in the public internet. If you're posting something in a blog post or posting something in a forum discussion. And so because it's going to be at some point may come out public. So be careful with that. Um, that's why I like this like LM Studio because it's local, it's in your laptop and you do it. If you go with services like AWS, Bedrock, in GCP, and AI Studio, they do not use this. You prompts in conversations for retraining the model, but then you have to go on the way of like having to set up AWS, blah, blah, blah. So just be careful with it. ChatGPT has a paid version and you can opt out of using your prompts for retraining the model. But once you sort that out, you're like, yeah, I'm good, whatever, other side of the coin. Start trying with different versions, give it multiple prompts, test what works with you, what it looks like. And then you're gonna start crafting a series of prompts that you have created, that you have played with, and that you're gonna be using over and over and over. Tips that I will suggest start with like tell it what uh, type of persona I should act as. So a lot of times for me is I'm a cloud architect, so I provide a lot of advice in the cloud. So I will tell it you are a cloud expert. Or if I want to go into really specific, I can tell it hey, you are a Kubernetes expert in AWS or Kubernetes expert in GCP. You provide this information, you provide helpful information. If you do not have all the information that you require, you ask for additional information and then go. If you are doing creative type of work, you do it this way, and then you can hey, give it the context as I was telling you before, and then ask or the question at the end. If you are doing some exploratory where you are not even sure if you have all the data, what I would say is like you tell it, hey, act as, but then tell it as part of the task is like, hey, I want to do this. What information do you require to answer this? And then it will tell you. Will tell you, I would like to know these topics, and then you're like, okay, I have this. I'm going to provide it to you, or like, no, all of this in one. So you will do that. There is no need to say please and thank you. I know I have seen so many prompts where it's
I
very
do
easy
say
to start going
please.
into like you say, please give me this. There is absolutely not it.
I'm training my AI to be kind.
Well, that's what a lot of people say. Like, you know, what? I'm asking, I'm being kind with it because at some point they're gonna take over the world, and I want to be in their good side. I want them to remember that I treat them nicely. Uh, yeah, there is
It's just a
like
word. You can just say please.
the reason why I'm saying that is because when you're like, for example, ChatGPT or this other model for consumers, it's fine. There is no you're not paying for the money. But when you're using a professional service like an AWS or GCP or like the API or ChatGPT, you pay for every word that you send. So it's like, well, why am I sending please? I'm paying for that it doesn't count anything, and then you're paying for it. And so that's why I'm like, don't like. There is no need to use please and thank you because then you may be using ChatGPT for testing, and then you translate that into a professional setting where you're in an application or something. Then you're paying for those. If it's personal, then if it's your personal use and you're using like ChatGPT or Anthropic, and you're paying on a monthly service or using the free version of it, then do not. Uh, tell it, please and thank you. In Canada, we do a lot of please and thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so just to switch gears a little bit, I just want to know a little bit more of your career journey and how you transition from customer service to technology sector and what sparked that interest initially.
I think we're going to be talking about this in future episodes, in more detail of what we have learned in our careers. I think it's called podcasts, but it was a big switch going from customer service into technology. The the biggest thing was just I wanted to do something more. I was passionate about it and I wanted to explore what was possible with technology. And so I started doing things on my own. And that initiative of trying to do it after a certain period of time is like somebody said like, hey, you're trying to do this, let's put you in a place where you have to. And that's kind of like what's all of it. It's just that drive. It's like, you know what, I want to do this and start doing it on my own. And start showing it to some people. Start showing it with people that are interested. And then among those people, they talk to somebody else. And I remember the manager gave me the opportunity to move on from customer service to business, which I mean, now is more business analytics. At the time was business administration, business administrator. Um, yeah, now completely understand. Anyway, um,
Business analysis, no?
business analysis, yeah. Uh, that when we do this transition, it was somebody that I even talked about. It's just that there were managers that talked to the managers, and finally, somebody like, hey, I need somebody to take over this. Somebody's going on vacation, and I need somebody to do it for 2 weeks. And so I took it over. And then after those 2 weeks, like, oh, this person now is transitioning to another role. I need somebody that do it for a year because normally there is a permanent person, but that person is away for a year. So I did it. It didn't turn out to be a year. It turned out to be like 3 or 4 months. And when the 4 months came, I didn't want to go back to some service, and then I started looking into all that stuff to happen. And I ended up with it happened. It wasn't price. So I know that like, what was your story? Because you were also in customer service. You
Yeah.
were from customer
Well,
service, and then you went into also the tech side.
yes. Yeah, I started as a customer service and agent, and then I had this guy who believed in me. No, I at that time it was you. I talked to you. I said that I knew that you were creating a new team that was called Operational Intelligence, and I really like research and like finding out stuff and like trying to solve problems. So I talked to you and I said, okay, I want to try to like solve these problems for the customer service department. And like I had this list that I already had prepared when I talked to you just out of the blue. And then yeah, I think, I don't know, you saw potential in me, I guess, and then I became a business analyst, but I had no idea what I was doing. So yeah, it was a lot of learning. And
It was a lot of learning, but one of the things that I remember about you was like, first of all, you reach out without even a position being open. You say, "Hey, Eduardo, I want to talk to you." You say, "Like, I wanna do this. How can I make it?" You didn't come to me like, "Hey, I wanna do this. Let me know when that position comes open." It was not like more of the, "Hey, I can't like I wanna do it. Let me like, what are the things that I can do to make my odds higher of getting it done?" So creating that plan with you. And the second thing I remember is that you had already started to take some courses in programming on your own. And so I don't think you ever finished them, but the fact that you started them, it means that like, you know what, you really want this. You are going on your own to make something happen. You're not just waiting for the position to come to you and for somebody else to give you that, "Hey, do this now, and learn this." It was just that initiative that you. And so my advice to the people that are listening, like, find that passion. And Andrea, you're not a programmer. You don't code, but you still are part of a tech company. You have been part of a tech company for quite a while, different companies, and you're immersed in a lot of this technology. You don't have to be a programmer to be part of it. So right now, we've been talking all this about AI. We need to be able to leverage how AI gets used, and there is a lot of opportunities out there. And that means that there is a lot of use cases that haven't been explored. So take a passion in what you do and look for ways to incorporate technology into your job. It's not going to replace technology, is not going to replace your job, it's going to enhance it. And when you enhance it, you get more value. When you get more value, you get noticed, right? You you uh, you are providing something. People are listening and asking you, "Hey, can I do that? Can I do that too?" Being able to provide that. So all of these, find your passion in what you do, and if you want in technology, start looking into how you bring technology and it's connected with that passion, with that job that you're doing today. If you're not doing the job that you would love to do, the question is, what is it that you can get people together? So that is advice that I will give you. And I think from you, Andrea, we are in that place. Like, just exploring what is it that we wanted to do.
Yeah, taking the
Uh,
initiative, I guess.
yeah, taking the initiative and being involved steps forward.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's a
we
good
have
way
come to the end.
to to
Yeah.
finish the first episode. I think
Thank you so much for everyone for joining us. Uh, this is Incense with Eve. We'll tell a story about that title at some point.
yeah.
It's all tied together. There is a reason behind it.
What is Eve?
Andrea, thank you so much.
Thank you, Eduardo.
Fantastic talking to you today. For you, enjoy the end of your day.
Yes, and you enjoy the beginning
At
of your
least keep
day.
it started. Thank you so much, everybody, and see you in our next episode. Have a fantastic one.